Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my review of the Junior Nike Mercurial Vapor 10 in the CR7 Silverware colorway. Now inside the box, normally you would get a string bag with the top end Vapor 10, at least that's the case with the men's variation. With the youth version, they don't include any extras at all. All you get in the box are the shoes themselves, but because this is the CR7 Silverware colorway, you do get this little tag here that lets you know that the sparkle effect on the upper will wear off over time as you use them. So again, inside the box, all you get are the shoes themselves. We'll pull these out really quickly and we'll take a closer look at the junior version of the Vapor 10, junior, youth, kids, whatever you want to call it. That's what these are in a size 6 youth, which is the biggest junior size that Nike makes. Of course, they come in smaller sizes below 6 youth as well. And what we're going to be talking about in today's video is how the junior version of the Vapor 10 is different from this men's or senior version of the Vapor 10. We're also going to be talking about why junior and men's shoes are different in the first place, because it's one of those topics that I do get a fair amount of questions about, because I know a lot of people watching my channel are still wearing youth sizes and they perhaps want to know why they make junior shoes different from men's shoes. That's something that we're going to be covering in today's video, given that this is a youth size shoe, not a men's size 9 US, which is what I normally wear. There won't be an on-foot portion to this video. I can't actually put these on my feet. They are too small. I can't fit any junior shoes on my feet. But like I said, if you're just interested in learning more about the junior version of the Vapor 10, you may find this video particularly interesting. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. All right, so what I have on the table in front of me is the youth version of the Vapor 10 and the men's version of the Vapor 10, both in the same CR7 Silverware colorway. Now, as far as what the differences are, you're going to find that the majority of the differences are found in the sole plate as well as the stud pattern. As far as the uppers go, they're fairly similar to each other. Starting off with the men's variation, you guys are probably pretty familiar with this shoe at this point. You're going to find that it's made from a one-piece ultra-thin Teijin synthetic material. It is the thinnest synthetic currently on the market. And really, if you're looking for that premium all-over barefoot sensation on the ball, this is one of those shoes that should be at the top of your list. The upper is thin, it's soft, it's flexible, it's reinforced by an internal support cage that works directly with the lacing system. So when you do pull the laces tight, that support cage, along with the one-piece construction of the shoe, keeps your foot locked in place and provides a very responsive sensation despite the upper being so thin. Another feature of the Vapor 10 is, of course, ACC all conditions control. You can see the branding right there on the top of the shoe, acting as your wet control element, if you will, providing a little bit of additional grip on the ball in wet weather playing conditions. Now, with the Junior Vapor 10, it still is made from a Teijin synthetic material. It still features a one-piece construction. It still has an internal support cage that works directly with the lacing system. I would argue that the Junior version does feature a slightly thicker material than what you're going to find on the men's version, which is kind of interesting, but I can kind of see why they did that, just to maintain some level of protection on the junior variation of the shoe. But overall, it's still going to provide a very premium barefoot feel. The quality of it is nice. It's soft, it's flexible, and it's thin enough. It's really, you don't need it to be any thinner than this. If the Vapor 10 was this exact thickness, it really wouldn't bother me at all. So again, if you're looking for that premium barefoot feel from a junior shoe, this is, in my opinion, the nicest thin synthetic junior shoe that I've personally ever held in my hands. Something that is noticeably absent from the junior variation by the branding that is not here on the top of the shoe is, of course, ACC all conditions control. I know that's one of those features that a lot of people are concerned with, but it's not something that's going to be a make or break feature in terms of what your experience is going to be with the Junior Vapor 10. So again, if it's something that you really wanted, it's unfortunate that they didn't include it on the shoe. There's really no explanation or reason why they wouldn't have it included it here. I guess you could argue that the men's Vapor 10 retails for $200, while the Junior Vapor 10 retails for only $120, so it's $80 less. But again, it's not one of those features that, in my opinion, is going to make or break your experience with the shoe. And as far as the colorway is concerned, they're the same silver. The only difference you're going to notice on the surface of the upper is that on the men's variation, the actual swoosh in white does have the glitter effect running through it, whereas on the junior variation, you're going to find that the swoosh is just a solid white with no glitter at all. Now the rear portion of the shoe, as you guys can see by the cut of the heel, is pretty much the exact same. It's the same shape, obviously just on a smaller scale. You're going to find an internal plastic heel counter here. They both feature the exact same smooth synthetic leather lining material. The insoles on both shoes are removable, and there are some minor differences going to the youth variation that I would argue are positive changes. From this angle, it appears to be exactly the same. Mesh liner on top, perforations throughout. It's made predominantly from a single layer of this black foam that has a good amount of thickness to it. And then you have the added foam layers inserted on the bottom of the shoe in the heel as well as the forefoot, providing a little bit of additional underfoot cushioning that you wouldn't normally get with the men's version. So really nice insole here featured on the youth Vapor 10. Moving on to the sole plate and stud pattern with the men's version of the Vapor 10, you're going to find that it's made from a compressed nylon material that's very, very thin, stiff in the right places and flexible in the right places as well. And then of course you do get that bladed aggressive traction pattern that's kind of a signature of the Mercurial line. Now when you look at the youth variation side by side, obviously the studs are different colors. You're going to immediately notice that the studs are a little bit shorter, which we'll talk about in just a second. But overall, they appear to be very, very similar. With that being said, it isn't actually the same at all. This is where you're going to find the biggest differences coming from the junior Vapor 10 to the men's Vapor 10. It looks like it's compressed nylon, but it's not. It's actually a TPU plastic construction. It's a fair bit thicker than what you're going to find on the men's version, equally as flexible, and it is going to have more weight to it by them doing it like this as opposed to using that compressed nylon material. Again, no real explanation as to why they did this. The only theory that I have is because this is a thinner, kind of stiffer material. I think that once you kind of shrink it down to a certain size, you make it smaller and smaller, it will get to a point where it just isn't flexible enough. So I think that the reason for the change in material is just for the sake of scale. They want to keep the shoe flexible. They want to have something that is going to be an appropriate flexibility given the type of person that's actually going to be wearing this shoe, which is generally a kid that doesn't have a lot of weight to them. So if the sole plate was overly stiff, it just wouldn't be comfortable for a child, for example. So that's why I think they changed the sole plate up, even if it does mean that the shoe isn't going to be quite as light as it perhaps could have been. As far as the stud pattern is concerned, you can see the layout is the same. The only difference you're going to find is that the studs themselves are slightly smaller in size, and they are about 3/4 as long. They're not quite as long. And again, the reasoning for this is because this is a kid's shoe. People who are wearing a size 6 youth or anything smaller are going to be a lot lighter. They're not going to be quite as strong, and it really isn't necessary to have studs as long as what you're going to find on the men's variation. Again, scale also becomes an issue. If you use studs that are full size on a shoe that is a little bit smaller, this is a 6 youth, so it's probably a little bit of a bad example, but if you went to a size 3 youth, the shoe is shrunk down quite a bit, and you have to actually space out the studs so all the flex points remain the same. If the studs are running across the flex points, the shoe is going to feel weird. There's more potential for stud pressure. And again, they just have to lay out the shoe so the studs are in a position where it actually makes sense for optimal traction. So that is the reasoning for the smaller size of the studs, as well as how they're positioned and scattered throughout the entire shoe. You also don't need that extra length because kids who are a little bit lighter aren't going to dig into the ground quite as deep. So something like this is going to provide better stability and equally as good traction as the longer studs will on the men's variation. So if that's something you were concerned about, don't be. You shouldn't have any issues if you do wear a youth size and you were looking at the Vapor 10. So that's pretty much it as far as comparisons go when it comes to tech specs. Obviously there are some differences going from the junior variation to the men's variation, but I think that most of these differences have to do with scaling and really what is most appropriate for a kid, because at the end of the day it's mostly kids who are wearing youth shoes. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions regarding the differences between the youth and men's Vapor 10, leave those down below in the comment section. And with that being said, let's move on to a quick weigh-in so we can see what the weight difference is between the youth and men's version of the Vapor 10 is. In terms of weight, it might seem silly to compare the weight of a size 9 US shoe to that of a size 6 US shoe, but I think you guys might be surprised by the results when I weigh both the men's and youth variation of the Vapor 10 side by side. So keep in mind these are both in in brand new condition. The men's version is a size 9 US, and the youth Vapor 10 that I have here is a size 6 US. So we'll start off with the men's shoe, again a 9 US. Throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.4 ounces, the equivalent of 181 grams. This is one of the lightest shoes currently on the market. We'll change the scale back to ounces, take these off, and we'll throw on the youth variation of the Vapor 10. Again, a size 6 US, significantly smaller than the 9 US I just weighed. And you can see that they weigh in at 6.6 ounces. So these are 0.2 ounces heavier than the men's version that is significantly larger in size. That's the equivalent of 187 grams. Not a big weight difference, but a surprising one considering that this is a significantly smaller shoe. You're probably asking yourself, why is the weight difference so significant? And that has everything to do with the material that they used in the sole plate. The compressed nylon on the men's Vapor 10 is not only thinner, it's a lot lighter, whereas on the youth Vapor 10, it's not only a different material, a TPU plastic as opposed to compressed nylon, it's also a lot thicker, which adds a lot of weight to the shoe. Whenever you see an ultra lightweight shoe, all of the weight is really taken away, or the majority of the weight is gained or taken away in the actual sole plate. So because they didn't use the same material as the men's version of the Vapor 10, that's where the youth version really gains all of its weight. Is this a big deal? Not really. I think that if you are wearing a youth shoe, this is obviously the biggest size they make in the youth Vapor 10. Even at 6.6 ounces, that's still a very, very lightweight shoe, both in hand as well as on feet. And of course, if you're wearing a smaller size, the shoes are going to be even lighter. So I think it's a bit of a bummer that these are actually heavier than a significantly larger shoe in the men's variation. But again, these are some of the changes that they made to make the shoe more appropriate for smaller sizes. All right, guys, that's it for my review of the Junior Nike Mercurial Vapor 10. Ultimately, if you do want the best Mercurial experience and you still wear youth sizes, this is really the best option for you. As to why junior shoes and men's shoes are different, I'll explain it one more time. The first reason is scale. You can only shrink down a certain design so much until materials and actual elements of the shoe need to be changed in order for it to remain functional, because at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. The second thing to consider is price. The men's version of the Vapor 10 retails for $200. The junior version retails for $120. Now that's not only because the materials have changed up, it's less material in general. It's also because you have to consider that if you're wearing youth shoes, you're likely a child, you likely don't have money, which means that your parents are buying these for you, and parents are only willing to spend so much on their kids' shoes. That's probably the main reason why we don't see a youth version of the Superfly 4, which is a question that I get all the time. I don't think we're ever going to see a youth version of the Superfly 4, because if you consider that the men's version retails for $275, if we were going off of the same scale as the price difference between the Vapor 10 men's version and the Vapor 10 youth version, that would mean that a youth Superfly 4 would cost somewhere around $200 US, which I think is a price that is far too high for 99% of parents out there who are buying shoes for their children. So again, scale and pricing is really the main reason why I think a lot of youth shoes either aren't available in the top end model, or if they are, there are significant changes to that top end model in comparison to the men's variation. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any other questions regarding youth shoes in general, or specifically the Junior Nike Mercurial Vapor 10, let me know those questions down below in the comment section. I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.